was this cool, so I tried to stay at least like kind of aware of positive news stories, because so much of what my own brain produces is negative stuff, and so much of what the world produces in the terms of like updates and news is also negative. So I just try to balance it out a little bit and like find positive things to like expand my perspective to be more reflective of what's actually going on in the world. So that's a long way of saying I found this article on neuroscience and what it can teach us about lowering our anxiety, which was really cool because I'd already planned on sharing with you guys this really very cool support tool for those of us that are experiencing anxiety. So I was like, oh my god, it's meant to be. There are 2 things that came to me about anxiety in the last couple days, so here we go. So I'm just gonna actually, you know what, I'm gonna read the original source. So it's in, wait, is that where it was? What is going on? Yes, this is correct. Okay, so it's an article in Psychology Today, and it's how to reduce anxiety right now. And I'll just read through it. Yeah, it's not that long. So there's a lot of anxiety going on around right now with the dislocation of normal life, schedules, and purpose that the pandemic brings. And under normal circumstances, roughly 1/3 of the population is anxious. Holy crap, you guys. I wonder what that means, though. Like, I totally get that roughly 1/3 of us at any given time is experiencing anxiety. Now there's a whole, but the emotion of fear, there's like a whole range of that, right? So anyways, I'm rambling. I can only guess what the numbers are now for all of us. Hey, that's amazing, Charlie. That's a great positive little blurb. Oh, maybe they stole your fruit, your berries. Or maybe you slept-walked. That's also possible. So given that the suffering may well be worse than usual, what does the research tell us about anxiety and communication? Is there anything to be done to make it better? The good news is that neuroscience has found some non-pharmacological, did you guys hear me say that? Yeah. Based ways to mitigate anxiety. Okay, cool. So this is brain science. Your berries. This is brain science, right? Helping us understand what we can do to reduce our anxiety. So the first finding is that the absolute best non-medical way to reduce anxiety is to talk to someone. What? Does this count? Are we already doing it? That would be really cool. Okay. Just connecting with someone at that simple level sends signals to the brain that mitigate the feeling that something awful might be about to happen. We humans are designed to connect with others, and we need the sound of other human voices to begin to do that at the simplest level. It makes us feel as if we're not alone, and that helps with feelings of anxiety that often develop as isolated thoughts. And of course, conversation of the virtual kind is still possible even now, with many countries and locales in lockdown and social distancing in force. So fire up Zoom or Discord and start communicating. Yeah, okay, so that's cool. Like, we're kind of already doing it. It sounds like you need to hear someone's voice. You can hear mine. I can't hear yours. Other than, like, I have voices for you guys in my head. Does that count? Maybe. Or maybe I'm just going crazy. That's possible, too. All right, so second little thing. Further, we can reduce anxiety by finding something to share with someone else. Okay, that's different than connecting somehow, and we're about to find out, hopefully. So chimpanzees don't share, but humans do, and from an early age. So research shows that even babies spontaneously share with strangers without being taught to do so. Even when they're hungry, just before meals, roughly 40% of babies will share food with strangers rather than eat it themselves. Holy crap. That's crazy. So sharing runs deep with us humans, and by connecting us with others, it can reduce anxiety and strengthen our social ties. We don't always remember or honor the idea, but we are a communal species. While the most common therapy to reduce anxiety usually involves exposure to the anxiety-producing thing, about half of the people afflicted don't respond well either to exposure therapy or medication. There is another way, the development of what are called safety signals. Okay, so we're about to move into the third, so I just want to pause and go back to this sharing thing. So we have connecting or communicating with somebody. And it's just those moments of hearing each other's voices that do something in our brains that help us move away from the fear circle we get in, like the little fear hamster wheel our brains get locked into, and away from that just by talking to somebody. So that's pretty cool. The second is that we can reduce our anxiety by sharing something with somebody. Do they see? I'm wondering. I wonder that too, Yeti dude. Yeah. So I'm wondering, like, what's behind the sharing, and is it the fact that you're in person with someone giving them something, or can it be the kind of sharing we do in Twitch all the time, like gifting subs, and those kinds of things. And I don't know. I don't have the answer to that, but it's interesting. And it all sounds like in other ways it would feel good too, right? Like when we share things, we tend to experience less like scarcity thinking. We tend to experience more gratitude, right? Less attachment to things. And when we talk to each other, like this is like good all around for our well-being, helpful all around for well-being. Oh my god, you have a clip of a chimp sharing an apple. That's great. Well, maybe this whole article is bullshit now, because if one fact was off, you never know. It calls it all into question. Okay, so here's the third one, is that we can develop things called safety signals. So the best safety signals involve like a musical piece, a calm and pleasant place, or a friendly person or thing, and this is my favorite, it can be a stuffed animal. So the idea is simply to think about your chosen safety signal when you become anxious. And the result is that this triggers different parts of our brains, and so they trigger different parts of our brains than the ones that are triggered when we're experiencing anxiety. So if you're finding yourself anxious, you're in isolation during this whole pandemic, like your best bet is to communicate and connect with another human being, share something with them, or simply talk. And if you can't do that, listen to something that's relaxing, like a piece of music, visualize a favorite vacation spot, or think of a friendly person or a much-loved possession. That all seems really pretty dang doable, which I like. And it's not like some of the stuff that's good for us, like, getting fit or eating a healthy diet, those can feel like massive undertakings, and they're somewhat more challenging to accomplish sometimes. Whereas like this is just like, okay, I'm anxious, so I'll talk to somebody, or oh gosh, I don't want to talk to somebody today, but I could give somebody something, right? Or, oh, I don't want to do that either. I just want to be by myself. I don't want anyone to bug me at all. Okay, well, I'll chill with my favorite stuffed animal. Like, this is pretty cool. I like it. So they say that you'll get the best results if you reach out to other humans via video conference rather than a phone call or an email or a text message. Video conferencing sits at the top of the virtual communication hierarchy, with email. Okay, so email's the worst, phone and audio conferencing next, and video at the top. So I guess you could glom texting in with email. I'm not sure. Well, that's cool. That's cool. That's all very accessible. Oh, that's good, Tiki. I wonder if, and hi. I wonder if, because worry beads are a way of like centering your brain, right? And it's kind of like from what I've heard when people do it, it's kind of a meditation kind of experience. So it's grounding, and it's probably akin to a safety item, right? That's what he called them. What do they call it? Safety signal, right? Like when I touch my worry beads, it puts me into a state of relaxation, and that changes what's going on in the neurochemistry of my brain. Yeah, that's a cool tip. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I am Punch Life Back, and this is the Matrix Guard. We are a community of streamers, and we're coming together to become unstoppable, help each other become unstoppable, and overcome things like bullying, suicide, hatred, loneliness, anxiety, all of these things that are challenging and can ding our well-being, but they don't have to keep us down forever. So that's what we're here to do. I'm so happy to have you guys here today. If you don't already know, we are in beta test swing for our TMG Connect, which is on Discord. It's part of our Discord server, and it's where we're taking life coaches and getting them in contact with you guys so that you can have some sort of like support or partnership around the stuff that sucks in life. So it's going really well. It's been an amazing experience putting it together, bringing everybody on board, and for this last week, as the sessions started happening, I'm watching Discord because I'm there in case something goes wrong. And of course, I'm not seeing the sessions or anything like that. I'm just seeing our bot, is getting triggered, and then the coaches are interacting with the bot and the users, and they're off to the races and they're having their sessions and stuff. And it is just the coolest thing to see. I've been working, so I'm a life coach, and I've been working over 2 years on wanting to have some way to make coaching accessible to everybody. And I'm on the brink of having done it. And it feels really good. You know what I need to do? I need to go down and do the celebration power up. That's what I'm gonna do today. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm glad I remembered it. Thank you, Charlie! It is so exciting. It's, sorry, it's been this thing where, so it's a dream of mine, right? And like all dreams, it's super meaningful and super important to me. And it's been quite the thing to stick with it, even though I was afraid, right? Over and over again, and multiple times. Like, it's put me outside my comfort zone many times, and will continue to do so. Like, that's not gonna stop, I don't think. And yet I've stuck with it, and it's cool. Like, I'm really proud of myself for having done it. So yeah. Oh, Charlie! Right? Like, I was anxious for everybody's sessions too. I should have done this stream on anxiety before I asked you all to participate. But it's not as bad as one would think, right, SS? Is that fair to say? Or maybe it is, but it sounds like it was worth it. So Charlie, I think I gotta double check the schedule because I had you down for yesterday. So it doesn't mean we can't get you your session today. I just need you to tell me what time you think it's at, and then I'll see if a coach is available. But yeah, you guys are so awesome. See, this is the thing, like, every single time I'm with you guys, I end up being really inspired. Friday is today, though. It might be the time difference. Let me, So after I'm done streaming, Charlie, I'll Discord you. I'll message you. And make sure we're all good. It totally could have been on my end, so we'll work it out. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess what I was trying to say is, like, this is such a beautiful thing for me to see, because I am crazy inspired when I see people stepping outside of their comfort zone and doing so, like exercising their courage and their bravery and like flexing that muscle. And in the course of this beta, like I'm doing it, and then I'm seeing you guys doing it, and I'm seeing the coaches do it, right? Because like most of them have never been on Discord before. They don't know like how the tech works, you know, they've never done a session on Discord. So it's just so like unbelievably amazing for me just to see all these lights of courage that exist around us. I mean, you guys, we really are becoming unstoppable. It doesn't feel like that every day. You know, some days are way harder than others. But like, I just feel like the overall trajectory of our resilience, you know, our ability to like rely on ourselves is like on an upward climb, you know? It's just such a cool thing to see. So I'm really deeply grateful to you guys for being a part of that. And yeah, anyways, you get it. You get what I'm saying. Oh, the basket's back with the dinosaur inside. Yes. All right, I want to share this with you guys. Let's see. Here's the tool so my friend brought this to my awareness, and I'm freaking glad he did because it is awesome. And there's the link. So the Wellness Society produces a lot of self-help tools for mental like health and mental well-being. And they've got like various free tools here, right? The one that I was just shared, the way I've discovered them is through this. And I looked it over and it looks really amazing. It's chock full of like evidence-based practices to help us with our anxiety. And of course it's like put into the context of coronavirus, but really I think it is applicable to anxiety in general, which is a universal experience, right? Like we all have anxiety, and I was just, we just all have it. We all have it. We all have stress, right? We all have these shared experiences. So, so basically they like, you know, like this is just like their plug of it, which is what I kind of just want to go through today because there's a lot of really amazing information in here. And if you like what you're seeing, use that link I just shared to get your own free copy. You know, I think I'm tweeting it out tomorrow too in case you forget. But it's just like they talk about like stress and then versus anxiety and what's the difference. And it's just really, I mean, I can't even like, I'm so excited. I don't even know where to begin is what's happening. And I'm such a geek when it comes to this stuff. So in this unprecedented period of global certainty, we felt it was necessary to put together a Corona Anxiety Workbook to provide our community with much needed support. This is an online version of the PDF workbook, which you can download for free above. The first thing to note right now is that it's completely normal to be experiencing a wide range of emotions. Accepting your feelings is an important first step to building resilience. Yes, the simple act of naming our emotions has been found to benefit our well-being. So take a moment now to tune into your body and notice how you're feeling. You may be feeling anxious, stressed, worried, fearful, low, lonely, overwhelmed, helpless, frustrated, guilty, angry. Now, I'm feeling happy, right? Because I'm with you guys, and we're just talking about my beta, and it feels good. Like I feel very, very happy. So they didn't list any of the the positive emotions, which you may be experiencing right now, too. And those are all valid as well. So they go into describe stress, and they describe anxiety. And then they break anxiety down into things like specific things like threat scanning, which is when our mind searches for in the environment things that we fear, whether it's conscious or subconscious. And it's just, And then catastrophizing, which is what I do a lot of, right? Where it's like you just start generating like a lot of worst case scenarios in your mind. You go into this horrible future vision of your life. There's hypothetical worry, emotional reasoning, fortune telling. It's amazing. The stuff that's in here, you guys, it just seems like they took like, I love things that like compile the best of research, right? And the best of evidence-based practices and tools. It's very cool. So they recommend that you go on an information diet, which I think we've talked about. So if you're really glued to like news feeds, don't do that. Don't do that. It's really, really, really detrimental right now. It can really trigger your anxiety over and over and over again, because news is very biased to negative things and to catastrophizing, right? Because that sells and that makes them money. And you can still stay informed without being inundated with stuff that just triggers your anxiety. Yay, Nico! So she just doesn't like the skin. Maybe you need to squish it so she can tell that it's delicious, and then she'd eat the skin. That's what I have to do for my dogs with like an orange slice. I have to bust it open. Yeah, so, they recommend these trusted news sources like the CDC, or WHO, right? So you can just, if you want to stay informed about like best practices and that kind of a thing, be selective in your news source and just turn off everything else if you can. Then they offer like a whole bunch of uplifting news sources, and then, positive newsletters, which is cool. And this part I really, really like, because they talk about our spheres of influence, and there's the things that are in our control and outside of our control. And one of the things that stoicism talks about, right, is like, that's kind of the premise of stoicism, that really everything outside of ourselves we can't control. So it's the practice of being a stoic is in many ways the practice of letting go of trying to control things we have no control over, and instead we focus on just ourselves. And that's certainly a lot of what coaching is about, and a lot of this backs up a lot of what the science of resilience talks about. And so it's really, really great. So the things that we can lean into during this time, so that when it's over, we're proud of who we were during the experience, or we found the time meaningful, and it made us in some way better off, right? Then the things we could lean into are the things that are in our control. So they say building resilience, following the latest information and advice, right? Like, again, like limited news advice, focusing on what's important to you, your routine, like building a routine, having like a relaxation practice, cultivating connection, which is what that other article was recommending, eating well, exercising, seeking and offering support, and voting in activism or volunteering, I would add, right? So those are pretty cool things. The things that are really a waste of your well-being to worry about and to focus on are other people's decisions, their health, like the news, the government's actions, just everything outside of us, right? This list would be going on forever. So, sweet. Yeah, so they just go through all these, in fact, like, look at this. They talk about stoicism, they bring it in here. It's like, I got so nerdily excited. So nerdily excited. So they recommend videos and books. Like, there's just so much in here that you can dive into if you want. I do really want to read these quotes, if you guys are okay with that. So the greatest obstacle, and just, I'll check chat if you're like, no, I'm so bored. I'm so bored, punch life back. Move on. Until you do, I'm going to keep going. So Seneca, who was a Stoic, in fact, all of these are Stoic quotes. Awesome. So Seneca says, the greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. The whole future lies in uncertainty. Live immediately. Live immediately. For me, this is a reminder about the only thing I can control is myself, and myself only exists in the present moment, right? Live immediately, like face what you have right here to face, and work with what you have inside of you, because that's what we can control. So Epictetus says, ask yourself, Does this appearance of events concern the things that are within my control or those that are not? If it concerns anything outside of your control, train yourself not to worry about it. That's a heavy lift. It's interesting. Sometimes I'll notice I'm doing it. I won't be able to stop, but I can at least notice it. And that, in those moments, it gives me like a little bit of distance from it, even though I'm still experiencing it. It's something so interesting about the brain, how it can do that. Marcus Aurelius, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Again, Marcus Aurelius, when you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. Yeah. The Stoics do that a lot. They meditate about their mortality. And it's not meant to be depressing or to cause anxiety, but to key them into the preciousness of the opportunity we all have every time we wake up in the morning. Every single moment of the day is an opportunity to have whatever kind of beginning you want, right? Like every moment is fresh. Every choice can be fresh. It's a precious thing, really. Yeah. Epictetus says, when I see an anxious person, I ask myself, what do they want? For if a person wasn't wanting something outside of their control, why would they be stricken by anxiety? When I see an anxious person, I ask myself, what do they want? For if a person wasn't wanting something outside of their control, why would they be stricken by anxiety? Well, there's that, primal anxiety. If I was getting hunted by something, I would be pretty anxious, even though there's a lot I can't control there. Marcus Aurelius says, the universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. Ooh. Gosh, this brings to mind... Wow, this is a big idea. I don't know if I'm going to do it. I don't know if I'm going to do it justice, but... The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. It reminds me of this idea that there is a certain amount of suffering in our life that's inevitable, right? Like we're like talking about meditating on our mortality, right? Like we are all going to pass away eventually and we lose people. There's just a certain level of suck that is guaranteed. And that's why resilience matters and why I'm motivated to show up in the world the way that I do, right? To help us navigate through those times. And yet, we also then add on a lot of not inevitable suffering to our lives, right? So it's like, and that's what he's saying, I think, with our life is what our thoughts make it. Because when our thoughts are... the thousands of ways we do this. Like, we judge ourselves. We tell ourselves we should do something. We shame ourselves. We, interpret things that are impersonal as personal. Like, all of these gajillions of ways that our brain, makes us feel worse. Like, that's all non-essential suffering. That's stuff that we add on because we're not yet in control of our thinking or not more in control of our thinking. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Marcus Aurelius. The universe... I've just read that one. Ooh, I really like it. I'm going back to it. Okay, Epictetus. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When something happens, the only thing in your power is your attitude toward it. You can either accept it or resent it. Ooh... I have not heard that one before. You can either accept it or resent it. I think there's a tendency for when we talk about when I've talked about acceptance, sometimes I interpret it in a way, and I think other people do too, in a way that isn't what I mean. So, to accept something isn't to roll over and be a victim to it, right? And to not fight back or, figure out a way through it. Acceptance is like, it's surrendering without being a victim. Yeah. Yeah. Versus resent it, which is like creating a story around it about why it's unfair and, you know, like why it's wrong, like adding on all of so how we interpret things, how we frame them, either, and it's a shitty situation, if we accept it and we like are able to like go through it and practice our tools of resilience and all that kind of stuff, that's like not piling on extra suffering. Resenting it, creating a story where there's an enemy, all that kind of stuff, like that's piling on the extra pain that doesn't have to be there. If that makes sense. Does it? I don't know. Sometimes I don't know. All right. Epictetus says, men are disturbed not by things, but by the view which they take of them. Again, same concept. Same concept. So it's like this. Tiki, yes. Right. That's right. Because gossip is like fomenting bullshit, right? It's fomenting all that extra layer of here's the thing. I think this is it. Anytime we layer on judgment to an objective experience, like we are risking adding additional suffering that doesn't have to be there. Yeah. And gossip is contagious, right? Like we feed off of each other's bullshit. Yeah. And then we like are heaping on extra pain all over the place together, collectively. Yeah. Yeah. So Epictetus says, don't demand or expect that events happen as you would wish them to. Accept events as they actually happen. That way peace is possible. This is the same concept, right? Marcus Aurelius says, don't let your reflection on the whole sweep of life crush you. Don't fill your mind with all the bad things that might still happen. Stay focused on the present situation and ask yourself why it's so unbearable and can't be survived. So what I am noticing reading all of these back to back to back to back, there's a lot of just like a negative perspective, right? It's about don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. So one of the ways I would translate this last one, right, which is like, hey, don't be negative about your experience, right? Which that's hard to follow on, right? Like that's like, okay, great, that's a nice idea, but how do I do that? So maybe another way to ask this question is, instead of like why it's so unbearable and can't be like why the present moment is so unbearable and can't be survived, an alternative question that gets at the same thing is, why isn't it worse? Like what is actually working for you right now, right? So yeah, some of these I'm like, ooh, is this too much? Like, is this, causing anxiety reading these? I don't know. Epictetus, freedom and happiness are won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Yeah, that is the overall theme. So yeah, so then they offer up how to, CBD. Well, yeah, that could work too. Cognitive behavioral therapy techniques. And we've done some of this, and there's a power up, right, that you can use if you're experiencing anxiety and want to challenge your thoughts. So they offer up the ABCDE technique, which is really good. There's also the think technique, which, I don't know, they just have stuff here, guys. If you're experiencing anxiety, I highly recommend this. And one way is to distract yourself. And they list a ton of ways that you can keep your brain distracted from your anxiety as a coping mechanism. So that is pretty sweet. Part 2 is about creating your stress resilience action plan. Here we go, a daily gratitude practice. So they recommend that as well. A daily breathing practice, which our meditation together, I think, does that. And then just improving the quality of your social connections, right? Because that is maybe one of the number one things we can do to help ourselves with our anxiety. They recommend exercise. Everybody does. Yeah, and then further resources. So it's really great. There's a lot of useful stuff in here if you're interested. I will, I'm going to repost the link just in case. Yes. Beautiful.